Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's main event. In this corner, with a history dating back to the 14th century, with prestige and heritage, I give you the Mechanical Watch Movement. And in this corner, with a history dating back to the late 1960s, the Mechanical Watch Killer. The beginning of the end for the Mechanical Watch. I give you the Quartz Movement. All right, fellas, I want to have a clean fight here. No eye gouging, no kidney punching, all right? Now you go to your corners, and when the bell rings, you come out swinging. All right, let's get to it. Let's get ready to rumble! Hello, everybody, and welcome. So I think you can tell by the intro what I'm going to be talking about today. Maybe? Yeah. Anyway, so yes, we're going to be looking at what's better. Is a mechanical watch better? Is a quartz watch better? Does it even really matter? I've really put this video together for people who are first-time collectors and looking at starting collecting watches and helping understand where you should start, or does it matter? Anyway, so before I begin, I'm going to go over a little bit of the history about the mechanical watch and the automatic watch, which I kind of think the automatic watch is maybe a subcategory of the mechanical watch, and then, of course, the quartz watch. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at the mechanical watch, and let's get on with this history lesson. All right, so the mechanical watch. Well, let's actually start with the mechanical movement, because the first mechanical movements that we see really originate back in the 14th century, and those were used in clocks and in big giant clock towers and desk clocks. But it really wasn't until around 1810 when a man by the name of Abraham Louis Breguet, which the Breguet name may be familiar to some people who are collecting watches. He, of course, is the Swiss watchmaker who was responsible for the Breguet watches, which are a very well-known high luxury brand. Anyway, so in 1810, Abraham Louis Breguet creates this wristwatch for Caroline Bonaparte. Now, that's Napoleon Bonaparte's younger sister. Now, you might know her more commonly as Queen Caroline of Naples. Anyway, he designs and he creates this wristwatch for her and presents it to her. And that really kind of starts the wristwatch movement. But as we go through history, we find that men really weren't wearing wristwatches at all. That was more something that came along after World War I. Actually, let me correct myself. That is something that came along during World War I and then continued after World War I. So now we get to talk about the automatic movement. Let's check that one out. Okay, so the automatic or self-winding movement, as it was originally called. Now, the earliest evidence that we can see of this self-winding movement is back in 1776 to 1777. Now, there was something going on at that time, kind of over here in the colonies, as it were. It's been in a couple of history books. You can go look it up for yourself. Well, at the same time, there was a man named Abraham Louis Breguet who had developed a self-winding movement. Now, this went into men's pocket watches and so forth, and it pretty much just kind of stayed there. But it wasn't until after World War I that there was a renewed interest in a self-winding movement for wristwatches. Now, you have all these guys coming back from World War I, and they're wearing their wristwatches, and now there's this interest to say, hey, maybe we can move this self-winding movement into wristwatches. Well, lo and behold, a man by the name of John Harwood, who was a British watch repairer, invents and creates the Harwood bumper watch. This is really the first self-winding movement in a actual wristwatch. And this basically worked by a system where you had kind of an arc-looking kind of a weight that would bump back and forth, and it had limited movement, but it would wind the watch. So that's kind of where you get your first real automatic or self-winding movement. Now, go to 1930, and the Rolex Corporation expands on that Harwood bumper watch and creates kind of what we see today, where you have the semicircular disc rotor that sits in the center of the movement and spins around, and it winds the watch. So there you kind of have a little bit of a history of the mechanical and the automatic movements. So next, let's take a look at the Quartz movement. Okay, so the Quartz movement. Let's take a look at that. So the story goes that on Christmas Day in 1969, there was this company called Seiko. Yeah, Seiko. These guys release the Seiko Astron. This is the first commercially available quartz watch that people can buy. Now, affordability was not on the list here at this point, because originally this watch cost, in today's dollars, around $9,000. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not something that anybody can just go pick up at the store. And it was a limited release, so they didn't have very many of these. But the reason for that $9,000, I believe, was the fact that the case was 18 karat gold. So, you see, at this point, the Quartz watch starts to come into play. It's being developed. It just gets better and better and better. And now we have what is called the Quartz crisis, where all of these old mechanical movement manufacturers, I don't want to say old, but you know, they're having to play catch up, and they're having to develop quartz movements. And Seiko is now ahead of the game. So now we have quartz movements that are highly accurate. You've got high precision quartz, you've got mecha quartz, you've got all these different quartz movements that you have today. So you can see now a little bit more about the quartz movement. Well, let's go and start taking a look and breaking things down a little bit more, and let's go from there. All right, so now I've given you a little bit of history and you're still scratching your head going, what does this have to do with anything? We still haven't answered the question. What's better, quartz, mechanical? Why am I here?
Get on with it!
Well, I'm going to break it down and I'm going to show you reasons why you might want to buy a mechanical watch versus a quartz watch. So let's take a look at the quartz watch, okay? So some main reasons that you might consider a quartz watch: accuracy. So right out of the gate, a standard quartz movement is more accurate than pretty much any mechanical movement that you're going to have out there. Even those CSOC or COSC certified movements that they talk about from Omega and from Rolex and you name it, okay? Those movements, those mechanical movements that are certified as chronometers, they are allowed a variance, I think, of it's like -4 to +6 seconds a day. By comparison, an off-the-shelf quartz movement is accurate to 15 to 20 seconds per month. So if you kind of break that down, that quartz watch is going to be way more accurate. Now, here's another reason why you might want to pick up a quartz versus a mechanical or an automatic watch. Grab and go. You just grab it and you put it on your wrist and you go. It's got a battery in there. It just keeps going and going and going. You can forget about it for 2-3 months even, and oh, there it is. Put it on your wrist and off you go. So you can see there's another reason why you might want to pick up a quartz watch. Also, expense. Yes, the first watch was about $9,000, but the cost to pick up a quartz watch now has gone down significantly. So you can get a really good quartz watch for like, I don't know, 12, 13 bucks. You can go look at Casio. They got tons of them. You can pick those up easily for anywhere between $12 to $60, just as kind of an entry level. So there we have another reason why a quartz watch might be something you might want to consider, okay? So let's go take a look at a mechanical watch. Why would I want to buy a mechanical watch? What about it? Why? Well, power. It doesn't need a battery. The thing has a rotor in it. It spins around and it winds. Pretty much all watches that are mechanical now are also automatic. There's very few that are just mechanical. But with these watches, you don't have to have a battery. You don't need a power source. Well, the only power source really is you. You use it, it spins the rotor, it winds it up. And it usually has a power reserve anywhere from like 36 to, oh wow, all the way up to like 80 hours for some of these things. So that's that's a reason why you could consider a mechanical watch versus a quartz watch. Now, another reason, connection. And what do I mean by connection? I mean you connecting with the watch. You are powering this watch, your wrist motion. You are engaging with the watch. You form a connection with that watch on a very personal level. You will start noticing things like the dial, the hands, the second hand. Personally, me, I love watching that second hand just tick around. I think that's really just very intriguing to me. You will also notice, for some that have exhibition casebacks, you'll develop that connection. You'll be looking at how all these gears are working and just the ability to see the actual movement doing its job. And the last thing I would say is sophistication. Now, this is more of a personal thing, and please feel free to leave a comment and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't care. But I kind of feel like when you put on an automatic watch or a mechanical watch, there's a certain level of sophistication. You might feel like, hey, I got a nice fancy watch. Even if you got it on AliExpress, even if you got it from Seiko, doesn't matter. It's got an automatic movement in it, and it feels good on your wrist, and there's some weight to it, and it feels like you can feel, wow, this thing feels really good on my wrist. So those are some of the reasons why you might consider a mechanical watch. And of course, as I listed before this, those are some of the reasons why you might consider a quartz watch. So at the end of the day, what do I think about it? Well, let me tell you, and we'll close this thing down. Okay, so we're still no closer to answering the question, are mechanical watches better than quartz watches? Which one's the best one? And you know what? The answer to that question is up to you. Hey! That's right. It's you. What does this mean to you? What does any of it mean? What do you like? Because what you like as a person may not be what I like as a person, and may not be something that I ever wear. So whatever watch you pick is going to be the right choice for you. I would more concentrate on, one, what do you like? Does this watch do it for you? Do you like the way it's built? It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It only matters what you think, because you're the person who's wearing it. So think about that. Think about all of these things that I've said here today. And do me a favor. If you like what you see here, please consider dropping a like and maybe subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I'm going to be reviewing some other watches here coming up. But for now, I'm kind of doing this and seeing what you guys like. So why don't you leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Join the conversation. Tell me if you think quartz watches are better than mechanical, or mechanical is better than quartz. It really doesn't matter. I want to hear from you. I want to talk to you about this. So leave me a comment. And while you're here, if you're looking for quartz watches as an example, then why don't you check out this video over here. I'm going to tell you what I think about Casio watches and why they're so darn popular. Thanks again for watching.